And then about 5 minutes after I got there, you could hear this roar and sort of know what's going around. And everyone around in that same moment, okay, Scotty's on the problem. The moment he walks through the tunnel and he comes onto the 10th tee, like literally 10 feet in front of us, it just, everyone explodes. It's like going, Scottie, Scottie, Scottie. And then they go, free Scottie. Like the momentum he had behind him, like even by the end of the day, there are free Scottie t-shirts and the property the same day. And they got his mugshot the same day. Like we're walking around at 2 o'clock and they're already wearing.
All right, welcome to the follow through. We know it is FedEx Cup playoff time, which would be a really unusual time to be talking about major championship golf. But knowing that the reality for all of us is that if you are ever thinking about traveling to a major, you're probably going to start thinking about it way in the off season and starting to prepare ahead. So we have recruited a few people here tonight to talk about attending a major championship golf tournament, planning ahead, taking it all in and sharing some of the great stories and experiences that people had. And we hope that inspires everyone to maybe attend a major themselves down the road or maybe just a professional golf event. Joining us today are Dave Ridgedale. Dave, someone who's played a lot of golf with us over the years, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about Royal Portrush in 2019. And I just learned before we started here that he also attended the British Senior Open in 1999. And with some of the latest viewers who have joined our audience, that was probably before they were born. Tim Bloomfield attended the 2017 Masters and the 2024 PGA Championship. There's no truth to the rumor that he was the one who phoned 911 to get Scottie arrested at the gate. So don't believe what you hear. And Troy Bartman joining us as always, attended St. Andrews, the Open there in 2016. I think we alluded to him getting in some bonus golf there because of the weather that year. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And Mose. Mose is not here tonight. Mose is out on a tractor or in a truck selling slushes or whatever other side business he's got going. So welcome to the show, everybody. Tim has started off here with a little souvenir. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what we got here.
Yeah, no, it's the best souvenir is just a cup or a glass, something that pretty cheap. Apparently, this is actually one of the trends at the Masters now. It's one of the more trendy souvenirs. If you guys watch the Masters, you will see people collecting these glasses. So anytime you order a beer or any type of cocktail, the glasses come free. And people now have started collecting them. You'll see people hauling 15 to 20 of them around the golf course in bags and backpacks and things like that. So it's one of the more trendy things out there. That
with their long gnomes?
The gnomes are a tough get right now. Like you got to get there Monday morning to get the garden gnomes. They go pretty fast, apparently.
Dave and I taught a lot of speed stacking in elementary school.
Yeah.
These would be good cups for them.
They look very similar.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to drink? We can't drink this before we...
I could have a toast.
Yeah.
There you go.
No. We're just drinking
Apple juice.
Apple juice. That's a fancy apple juice ice cube.
From Kentucky, where the PGA is.
It's really tasty. Caramely. Very nice.
So I thought maybe we could just kind of set the stage about each event. Maybe just a little bit about where it was, the year. I mentioned that, obviously. Maybe if you remember who was hot coming into it and who you were dying to see. Some weather around the event, and then we'll kind of go into some of the specifics. So you want to lead us off, Dave?
Yeah, sure. I guess if we went back to 99, just family trip, happened to be in Ireland. And then we found out, like just out of coincidence, just driving along, we did the Antrim coast. And while we were doing it, we ended up seeing that they were hosting the event. So then looked to see about tickets, and sure enough, drove back the next day to take that in. You speak of weather. I have a picture on my phone of the radar. I'll show you guys later. On the Sunday on the closing round, actually back in 2019. But when we were there in 99, it was the the flip and flop. We had weather coming in sideways, the rain, and then it turned sunny by the end of the round. But probably the biggest walk away from there is watching guys hit, didn't matter which club, 20 feet max, just into the wind.
Was that not you and I recently? On a non-windy day. We even played those shots on non-windy days.
Exactly, but not intentional.
No, lightning bolts. Yeah.
So, I think I think probably going back to the 2019, I remember more of it, obviously, just due to my memory and only 5 years ago. But amazing. We had 2 rounds and a practice round on the course.
Okay.
So,
And that one was really exciting in that it hadn't been in Ireland for a long time, right?
no, 68 years. They hadn't actually had the Open in Ireland, and then now it's on the docket, and next year it's back again.
We're going to talk about that. Tim, how about you?
Mine's
You got a couple of choices here.
Yeah, like if I start with the old one, 2017 Masters, that one's a little different. I don't know how much you guys know about that story, but it wasn't a normal trip. I actually got to go as a special guest to Mercedes-Benz. So what that meant was it was an
As you should.
As I should, because I drive a lot of Mercedes. So it was an all expenses paid trip, all accommodations, all food, all tickets. And it was 3 days at the Masters, 3 practice round days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And they put us up in accommodations. And what the accommodations were is there's about a group of about maybe 75 of us that went from across North America. And they rented this housing area that was all along a lake. It was like a lake community close to about a 10-minute drive from the golf course. And these huge mansions, a boathouse, facilities, entertainment centers, and they put about 2 or 3 people up in each house. And they would shuttle us around to all the events all the day. And we had a day pass to the Masters and to do, walk around and see the golf. But there is actually, and I never knew this, and I don't know how many people know this, but there are actually cabins on the property. So everyone knows about Butler's Cabin, and that's by the clubhouse and all that sort of stuff. But there is about 2 or 3 other cabins just to the left of it where you can stay if you're a guest. So if you are coming to golf from out of town, they'll put you up actually on the property, and any of the members can stay there. And during Masters Week, that's where all the honorary starters stay. So Jack Nicklaus was there, Gary Player was there. That was the year that Arnold Palmer passed away, so he wasn't there. His cabin was empty, but those 2 guys were in those cabins. And then just further down from the cabins on the number 10 fairway, on the left-hand side of number 10, there's 3 more cabins. And those are hospitality cabins for the 3 main sponsors of the Masters. And Mercedes-Benz is one of them. I think AT&T was the second.
Is it Rolex?
Not sure. It might have been Coca-Cola, AT, something like that. But there are these sort of restaurant-style patio cabins, and that was our hangout for the day. So we had access to that, and we had all drinks, all cigars, all food, anything we wanted in the restaurant during the day, on the patio, and we could just sort of hang out there. So it was all part of this experience, and you're with these, 50 to 75 other people, and I sort of found out that I was really the only, Masters geek in the whole group, because some of them actually didn't even go to the Masters that day. They just hung out at the property and ate food and took advantage of that.
I'm just going to interrupt you for a second. This show is supposed to be about middle-aged golfers trying to do real things.
No, that's a one-in-a-lifetime thing. I don't even know if they do it anymore. Yeah. Like, you just can't find information about this on the internet. Yeah. Like, I try researching it to see if I can see pictures of what they are in current, and it's just not out there. So not only do you get all this stuff during the day, like they entertain you during the evening. Like the first night we're there, they put on a meet and greet, and and cigar bars and cocktail bars and just meeting everyone and talking, so low key. Second night, that would have been the Tuesday night, they brought in Ricky Fowler and Scott Van Pelt. Is that the guy at ESPN?
Yep.
Yeah. So they did a Q&A for about the 50, 75 of us, anyone who wanted to go. So we sat and did that for a little bit, and then we started asking questions from the crowd, and we got to talk to Ricky a little bit and things like that. And then I had gone the day before and bought some souvenirs because I knew Ricky was there. So then I got to sit and chat with Ricky at the end and sign some stuff and do a little bit of that. So that was sort of cool. And then also on Tuesday night, they brought in a country band, Lady Antebellum. I think it's changed the name.
Lady A now.
It's now Lady A. And we sort of had a private concert on the Tuesday night. So it was just this
For 50 of you.
event for 50 of us in
On the 10th.
Well, no, this was actually back at our housing districts where we were. But yeah, it was just unbelievable. Like just the access we got on the property. Like we had a badge that allowed us to get into a different level that other people could get into. And people at the Masters, like you hear everything that everyone is just so polite. Everyone's so chill on the property, and they are. Like it's so low key there. And even all the guys in the green jackets, like they are just chill and low key. Like they're happy to talk to you and they want to show you around the course and all that sort of stuff. And you know, I had a different level badge, so I was trying to see how far I could get to and different places I could get into. I got into Butler's cabin and found out I wasn't allowed there, so they asked me to leave. I couldn't get into the pro shop because you can all buy all the swag for the Masters, but there is actually an actual pro shop for the golf course. And that's where I sort of wanted to get into and buy something from there because it has a different type of branding on it and all that sort of stuff. But I couldn't get into that when they shut me out. But like I was in places where I wasn't allowed to be. I was in, like there's this big oak tree. You guys have probably seen in the pictures in front. Like I was hanging underneath there, sitting on those little patio chairs with the green and white umbrellas. And they came over and said, yeah, you actually supposed to be here. You should move. I'm going, okay, yeah, that's fine. And 10 minutes later, they came back and said, you're not supposed to be here. I go, okay, yeah, we're leaving. We'll be gone in a minute. And 10 minutes later, they came back and okay, but just very polite. And it's just, it's cool. Like everyone wants to go to the Masters and you should. Like, it's just, there's a vibe there that was different than the PGA. I sort of think that anyone who goes, even if you have some sort of joy about golf, like our wives tolerate it. Like they would even love it. Like it's just, I sort of equate it to going to maybe Disneyland. Like you're just in awe of being there and it's so well run. Or St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. Like it's just so opulent. Like you just sit around and you go like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And you're just enjoying it. But
can you share a little bit? I think you shared with me about the putting green.
So the other thing they had, so left of the 10 tee box, there's those 3 cabins like Mercedes-Benz and such. And then there's a roadway, of course. And to the left of those, they made a replica of the 18 green. And they put the Sunday pin down on, they cut the tin there. And then what they had is they had basically Scottie Cameron and TaylorMade and Callaway. They had the 3 reps there with every one of their putters in their lineups. And you could go out and putt on the green and they would actually give you the read on where you should go if you're stuck here on this tier and you want to get down to here and all that sort of stuff. And, first day I went out there and did it. And second day went out and did it. And I started talking to these guys and they go, yeah, you're really the only one that comes and do this. Like no one else was really too keen on this because the people who got these trips from Mercedes-Benz, like they said, I was really the only golfer. Like when the first shuttle left at like 7 a.m, it was like me and maybe one other person on it. And it was a random person each time. Like they just weren't too keen. They were going to get to the property when they got to the property, go have a drink. But I was maximizing my time there as much as I could and, taking advantage of just putting around on the 18th green. And, they talk about how quick the Masters greens are. So I'm actually talking to these guys. I'm going, okay, so what's the stimp? Like, what are they running at? And they said, well, we don't do a stimp at the Masters. We just have 2 speeds. It's called member speed, tournament speed. And they wouldn't tell me or they didn't know what the stimp was running at. But they had that 18th replica going at tournament speed. And it was quick, but it wasn't as quick as like, you hear the stories like, yeah, you're putting on a gymnasium floor and that's how you should practice to prepare for the Masters. I'm going, yeah, there's nothing like that, but it's definitely fast than what you see at any muni or things like that. But it's just and on the little things we got to do. And I guess one of the other little things that we got to do that I wasn't aware of is we entered through Magnolia Lane. So we entered with all the players in the Mercedes. So the first day we entered, and I'm sitting in like the second or third seat, and I'm going, well, this is cool. And then on my way out, and then every other time in, I just start talking to the driver. I'm going, is anyone else sitting in the front seat? He goes, nope. So I just jump beside him every time in the front seat, and I got videos of sort of like driving down Magnolia Lane with all the other golfers would, and you got the security gate.
Because you could have your cell phone during practice rounds, not during the real rounds. So you could take
you could have a camera. You can't have a cell phone. But I could have a camera. But that was the thing. Even in 2017, who owns a camera? Like I had to go borrow a camera, I think from one of my daughter's friends, things like that, because I didn't own a camera in 2017. Like, I don't own one now. So yeah, I got pictures on the cameras and driving down the Magnolia Lane, and then you pull up and you got like that big Founders Circle, I think it's called, where they got the flowers of the logo and the big flags in the middle, and just pulling into that, and then would go off to the left. So just a lot of little different things, and having that access where you could sit in that cabin off of 10, like you could go buy merchandise and they would store it for you at the cabin there. Yeah, it's just different. Like the Masters is cool, and I was spoiled because that was my first major. I know I'll never get that again, but yeah, I just want to go back and sort of relive and just walk around some of the places that I've been before.
Well, you've set the bar very high.
And, yeah, like it's, I'm spoiled.
I have to ask, how did you get this opportunity, like through Mercedes?
Well, my brother works for a university, and one of the sponsors for the university he works at is Mercedes. And what Mercedes has is some of the major dealers in North America, they get to hand out 2 tickets to their best clients as a thank you for continually purchasing Mercedes-Benz vehicles like I do.
Because kind of like in Canada where universities are purchasing multiple Mercedes vehicles for their universities.
All the staffers. Yeah, any type of staffer, they drive Mercedes. So he gave them to my brother, and he just happened to be friends, and he goes, do you know anyone who wants to use these? And my brother said, yeah. And, when he asked me, I sort of thought, yeah, this is pretty cool. I should think about going. And it was crazy that I just didn't jump at it now. Like, I am now in the lottery to get regular tickets. Right. And if I actually win the lottery, which I haven't, I would jump and go. Even though you could sell them on the secondhand market from anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a practice day, I would still, it's worth it just to go for one day or go out on Washington Avenue and get a scalper ticket for a second day, because that's definitely doable. We saw that happening. It's just, yeah, I wouldn't hesitate. I wouldn't jump at any chance you get to go to Masters. Like I said, just being there and just drinking it all in is pretty cool. So, yeah.
You, Bart's.
I'm just going to clap and call it an episode. How's that? Yeah. Yeah, British Open. Jordan Spieth was hot at the time. So lots of energy around him, lots of energy around Phil. We had had the whole family tickets for Wednesday practice round, Tuesday or Wednesday practice round, and a Thursday, I think, or a Friday day. And practice rounds are pretty, I think one of the questions I had for all of us would be if you could build an itinerary to go to an event, what would that look like? Would you attend all 4 days? Are there some days you take off? Would you go to practice rounds? What time would you get there? Those kinds of things. And so for us, I was just winging that, thinking, what would I like? And definitely a practice round is something different, right? You see them more casually. The players are more casual. You can go places that you can't go sometimes when the round starts. The people running the tournament are getting in and out differently. There's just more people. So I went Wednesday, practice round, which at the end of the practice kind of day, they had an exhibition. All of the old champions from previous British Opens were there, playing a 4-hole scramble, down one at St. Andrews. I think they did 1, 2, 17, 18. And I think there were 4 groups, maybe 5 groups of 4 in a scramble. And Arnold Palmer's there right in front of us, coming down one, which was, the golf. Arnold, obviously, it was 2015, not 2016. He had not a lot of pop, but so cool to see, some young former champions and guys like Arnold. Jack wasn't there. I'm not sure why Jack wasn't there. Maybe he was hurt or had eye surgery or something. But yeah, went Wednesday. I think we went Friday, and kind of like yours, Dave, the weather went nuts on Saturday. First time a British Open has ever been canceled for the day. It was an absolute, not just sideways rain, but the amount of rain, and the course was flooded. So they shifted it to Monday, and now we're thinking they had offered. We hadn't had tickets for the final round, but they offered anybody who wanted to go for £20. So anybody could go for 20 pounds. And we had a driver while we were there, contacted the driver to take us. And the driver said, I've got something better for you. I've had a couple of people who I've been driving around here for the past few days. They're gone. They left on Sunday night. I've got the same kind of different level of access passes. You can have those. So we had those as well as a couple of $20 pound. And yeah, we sat in the 18th grandstand to watch Zach Johnson make the winning putt. In some sideways rain, sometimes it was not a beautiful day on the Monday, but we spent another 10 or 12 hours with, I think my son was 13, my daughter was 11, and my wife, and so we had 3 days at the British Open.
And you guys, like, you stayed on the property, sort of. Yeah. Well, we stayed in Ely. Ely is a community about 15 I think every town in Scotland claims they own the oldest course in Scotland. And so we were in Ely, which is again right on the ocean. We rented a house for the week, and just a tiny little resort town. So it's where people from Edinburgh have it's like Elkwater here in Medicine Hat. They have this little resort town. Ely's a beautiful course. And that's where lots of the players rented houses, which we didn't really realize until we saw all these British open cars driving past our house. And, Truman was a bit of a face geek, knowing all the players, and he just kept picking people out. And as we're walking down the street, he said, there's Patrick Reed. He's going into that house. And we said, well, like, he's 13, he's tiny. I said, just go say hi, start talking to him. And as he's walking over, I mean, it may have been here to your backyard, so maybe 50, 60 feet from where we were walking. He kind of shuffled in really quickly. But Truman didn't dent him at all. He just knocked on the door, and Caddy opened the door, and he said, I saw Patrick go in here. And Patrick came out and had a nice conversation. I think he gave him a golf ball. But there were... that was the right way to do it, is just getting a little off the beaten path where it was not so hectic. And that town just happened to host a lot of the players that week. Yeah, so we weren't on St. Andrews. I can't even imagine what the cost of some of those accommodations on the course in, I'm trying to think of the name of the hotel. Dustin?
Yeah.
Like, Dave, yours really has a true family connection.
Yeah.
Right? And how far is Tan's family from Royal Portrush?
It'd be about a 45-minute drive. Yeah. They're just where Newcastle is, where that's the other big course of Northern Ireland that everyone usually goes over to play as well. And that said, so we went up. So it was us. Then some family friends came along with us, my sister-in-law and family, and then her cousin and wife as well. So we had a 4-bedroom house, and then one of her uncles as well had a place there. So we were all over so there's 5 of us there. It was really kind of neat to be there. And then and I guess ultimately, because I've been there before, and they changed the course a bit from back to accommodate the way we play now, and length and everything, and that kind of stuff. So that was kind of neat. Funny story though. We decided I think it was the first or the second night we get there, we all decided we're all going to go to this one restaurant. So we were in a little town. So obviously it's one thing in Portrush, but right next door to it is Port Stewart, and that's where our accommodations were. 10-minute bus ride. That's it. So we walk into a restaurant, and if I look over, and who do you think I see? From Medicine Hat.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Dale Filelli.
Yes.
And Devo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He was there because he was over, and Answer.
Right.
And so went over, said hello, and of course my relatives from Ireland are like, how do you know somebody? And I'm like, well, that's a kid I taught. And so he's caddying for this guy.
That was a kid that was in your school. I don't know that anybody taught Dale.
That's a good point. That is a good point. So yeah,
I think Dale's now made it into every episode.
Yes, yes.
One way or another. Because with the trainee caddy we had knew Dale and Ryan.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of neat. And then, of course, they're telling us, well, we'll be at the range at this time. And so, of course, we're trying to get there thinking, no, you're not.
That's not the way it works.
It doesn't work. You're not getting inside the ropes.
No.
So that's what our hopes were. But, a few times out and around on the course and that kind of thing. And then with that as well, when you had mentioned like spouses and Disneyland, ironically, my wife was like, she could take it or leave it. But of course, since she's like, no, loved it. So then, of course, this coming year, it's back again in Portrush. And I asked whether or not, was there any interest in going? So she was somewhat intrigued, but she's like, well, we've already done that. Let's go somewhere else in Europe. But she said she would definitely do another event. It was better than her anticipation.
Was it a big deal for family in Ireland too? Was this having the Open that close?
Yeah, it was for golfers. Other people, it's just another it's kind of funny in small towns like that. It's summer's already busy, but now you're bringing chaos to these little villages that can't handle chaos. So when you're mentioning the vehicles. Of course, it's a university town, and we were staying in basically not residence, but like a townhome, which would normally be rented out by university students. And sure enough, Mercedes-Benz is the vehicle of choice. And you look out, and sure enough, you would see the shifts of people who most of them were all employed, like just employees and or volunteers working and that kind of thing. So the vehicle would come through and pick up and that, but. It was really well done. You mentioned a driver. We had a bus stop. Just walk through this lane and get on the bus, and it would loop you around. And I'd say one of the biggest things that we're disappointed at is how good the golf course is in Port Stewart. And we didn't realize how good it was that we probably could have played it one day. It's ranked up there as well. And we drove past it every day we went to the course. So anyway, it's kind of it was neat.
And who won?
Shane Lowry.
Oh, right. So,
And you had
country.
You had a beer with them after in the pub?
We were in a pub. We had tickets. The opportunity, we didn't purchase, but we had opportunity to get a couple tickets for the final day. And then with the weather coming in, we decided not to. And we just sat in a local pub and sat there for the day and watched. So that was unbelievable, and that place lit up when he won. Everyone, it went crazy.
Yeah. So and they love him.
They do.
Yeah. I just saw a little. Wasn't a documentary, but it was a story on him. It must have been during the Open, when he's trying to think about turning pro. Did anybody see this? And he doesn't have a beard, and he's just this baby face guy. And at first, they're just doing this little piece on him. I'm going, who is this guy? And then he starts. Then they cut to Rory, and Rory saying, you got to turn pro, man. You got to do this. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe that was Shane Lowry without a beard.
Yeah. It's kind of neat. I mean, I don't know if it was the same for you. The only thing that I found hard is on the big courses like that, you just can't get that close. They have it kind of roped off, and where you go, and kind of there's ways where you can cross over from one side to the other on a loop, but that'd be about as close as you could kind of get to them. And even the range, remarkably, you're not as close as I was kind of hoping, except for the one end, there's the grandstands which you can sit in, but not all the bays those were all full. So we kind of just stood at the end, and Ricky Fowler was there, so that was about as close as we could get, and that then you could actually really hear them, how well they hit on the golf balls.
Yeah, and I would say we had access. I mean, Truman was on the tee box with Graham Dillette in the practice round. Truman had his Canada flag or something on his thing, and we're standing beside Dillette's mom, and she says, well, just go inside the ropes. And he was teeing off on 16. She said, just go in there. Go get your flag signed and go talk to him. And so he'd hit his tee shot, and I think Mom mouthed something to him, and then Truman, under the ropes, stood on the tee box. Did that with Phil on the putting green. It was for whatever reason on that Wednesday, it felt like you were saying Shane Lowry, he was playing later in the evening, and he had one of his little kids, the son or daughter was really young at the time. And yeah, he would have been this far from us teeing off on the par 3, hitting some shots. His kid was running around us. So I don't know if practice rounds were maybe just not as well attended in 2015, but I would have felt that that you had access to players or could get close to them, and but I also didn't realize it's their place of business.
Yeah,
right. It is. I couldn't believe they were walking off, after 7 holes or 11 holes or jumping into a group, and I was thinking, you get to play the old course and you're not finishing, but they've got business.
Exactly. That was the one thing that was interesting, that I thoroughly enjoyed the practice round, probably, I guess, more because you kind of saw them joking around, and then you'd have the one grouping, there's the 5 of them, so you had JT, Fowler, Spieth, and Horschel. Who was there's one other? It might have been Finau, and they're all kind of just monkeying around. But then they hit their shots in. But then they go to places where if they missed the green, and they had places roped off that you weren't supposed to go, but didn't matter. They're going into because they know that's where the ball it's all going to drain to here, and then they're going in there and doing things, and so.
But when you say it's sort of a business, some of them realize that part of their business is selling the sport. And they can do that during the practice rounds. They can't do that, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays. But when you're out on a practice round like Phil Mickelson, back in 2017, he was interacting through the whole time at the Masters with kids and fans. And, even one time he was trying to bet on hey, do you think I can hit the shot from here? And trying to put money on it and all that sort of stuff with fans. But that's Phil back in the day. But yeah, they're more open. They're more relaxed. They're more, letting things go. They're interacting with the fans. At least the good ones are the ones who realize that this is a product that they're trying to sell.
Yeah, they are essentially, they're salesmen of a product. Now they're still competing, but there's an element of their job that it's sales, right? That's hard to think of, being on as a salesperson while you've got pressure to perform and media attention. What a life that would be, and doing it in different time zones and with a camera in your face all the time. No one will actually ever watch this. They might listen. A few people might listen to a few bars are humming, but they're not going to watch it. But having a camera in your face while all of that's going on, yeah, they're quite remarkable. Yeah, I think I had thought about, and Corey, you can speak to this too, because it doesn't just have to apply to a major, but what were the elements of being at one of those tournaments where you just being around those kinds of athletes where you were struck by being around the best in the world?
Actually, it's a couple different things for me. I went to the range like you did when I was out at the Masters, and I maybe only sat at the range for a half an hour because I was bored. They're just striping shot, one after another, all perfect. They're just hitting 5 irons, watching Jordan or something like this, and every shot's exactly the same. And after a while, you're going, this is boring. What am I sitting here for? This isn't golf. So you're amazed that way. But then the other thing, when I was at the tournament rounds at Valhalla for the PGA, I'm surprised at how many times they do miss the green. And they do hit bad shots, because when you watch it on TV, they're only showing the good shots. They're only showing the leaders who are dialed in and they're hitting greens and they're doing that stuff. But man, they hit a lot of bad shots too. And it sort of makes me feel a little bit better. He's 150 out and he missed the green by 30 feet. I can do that. Yeah. So I guess it goes both ways.
You, Rich?
Yeah, I think probably one of the areas that was fun is even just the putting green. Is when guys are coming, and they go from the range, then they're coming to the putting green, however their routines are. But then everyone kind of, in the practice round, they weren't there as much. But on the morning, when they're getting ready to head out and do their thing, everyone, it is business time, and there'll be a small conversation, and then they move on, and they're getting dialed in. And I think probably you know, as you guys would know from your recent trip, is on the coast and watching when the wind come in, like when the wind's coming in and how they play it and what they're trying to do. It's really interesting to watch their thought process and what they, I think sometimes are more on where their misses are. Just like you said, like they are more calculated into not just hitting it, but if it isn't going to be, where will it end up? Because then they have there was one par 3 on the back that was pretty gnarly. It's just like it was like 220, and when it was windy, there was guys hitting drivers.
Corey, we've left Corey out. He has been to a major, the A&A Inspiration in Palm Springs. So you would have seen some of that. I mean, your kids were young, but
Yeah, well, I was more of a blink of an eye because we didn't even know it was happening. We were just in Palm Springs, and I looked and I could I still called it the Dinah Shore because it's actually on Dinah Shore. And so we went over there for the afternoon and followed Lydia Cole for a little bit.
she's done all right.
Yeah,
recently.
she's she's accomplished a couple of things. Thinking about your question, because I've been to some other events, and I spent some time on the range at the Scandinavian Masters. I went to the range at the Mercedes in Hawaii, and the putting green just recently with SP at the what's the name of the event in Palm Springs now?
At the TPC. At
The PGA West.
PGA West.
That guys are always working on something. Like they're trying to figure. They're just like us in trying to search for something, or they got some cue that they're working on, whether that was on the range and whatever that was the technique of the day that they were trying to do on the. I could see everybody trying to make that same move, and then on the putting green, who's a Charlie Hoffman, like he was already done for the day, but he was grinding on the putting green, and his caddy was placing balls around. You could see he had a very specific drill that he was doing, that he was trying to find something. But then I think to what you were saying, Tim, they're par machines. Like if they miss a green, if they hit a bad shot, they are going to grind and figure out how to turn something stupid into a par, and get to the next hole. Yeah.
They plan that. Like that's the opposite of us, right? Like we don't. I don't plan for 8s, right? Like I'm not planning for that at all. They're planning to get 4s. I'm not planning to get 8s, and it happens. I maybe need to plan away from 8s. So obviously we come from Canada. Lots of hockey players. We're surrounded by lots of pro athletes who maybe have been in on day for you some basketballers, right? Yep. But hockey would be predominant. So being around pro athletes is not necessarily brand new when we're talking about being around athletes who are pros. What were some things when you think about some of the pro athletes that you know or have been around growing up, or even in the last decade or so, compared to those individual athletes who are in the spotlight by themselves, not necessarily team athletes? So I'm just speaking of hockey, or basketball. Just wanting to think about being around, I hate the word elite, but those best in the world kinds of players. Did you notice anything different about those individuals versus the people that maybe you've been around more in your life?
I think it's pretty similar. Like if you want to get to the top of your game, like you got to be in that top 0.00001% to get to that next level. And you hear stories about Kobe, and Kobe, and he would kick your butt in practice. He would run through a teammate in the Olympics just to set the tone, just because he wanted to win so bad, and he worked hard enough. Same with Michael. But you also hear the stories about VJ, to his hands would bleed because he sits out on the range till they turn the lights out on him just hitting balls, and same with Bryson. So there's not really, I think, even in golf, a lot of those naturals that can just show up, go out, shoot your 6-7 under par and get back in the vehicle and go out for dinner. Like I think if you want to be good these days, everyone, has to push to get that extra 1 or 2% better, because it's really only one missed shot. Sometimes it's the difference between a trophy and we're going to make in the cut.
It was interesting. I'll mention his name, Mac. He gave us a connection from his brother. Knew a guy, and Troy Van Beason is his name. He's the chiro for the Dallas Stars, but he also is a chiro for a number of PGA guys, Tiger Woods. So hence my autographed flag is the one who we met, called him, met with him, gave him our flags. Then we got to chat with him for a bit and then pick him up a couple days later. But the time he starts to work on Tiger in the morning, depending what time the tee, like he's at the course before 4 a.m, starting his workout.
Well, didn't you share a story? Because Tiger had just kind of returned. And he had said something in a private conversation like, "This isn't going to be a good week for Tiger. His tee times, the weather's going to be too cold, and his tee times are too early, and he'd have to be at the course way too early." Like it was too
That's
enormous
exactly
of a task.
It's just the temperatures weren't going to work, and his body is also at the same time. It was just coming back from numerous surgeries, and he just said the amount of work that he had to do pre-round, after round, and then that to me, and it's not just him; it was all of the athletes. So, let alone their warm-up routines, then they're in getting stretched out by chiro/physio, and then after as well. So. And he had 6 guys there, I think, he was looking after. So his day as a chiro was full. So that was, it was a really neat, just to stop him. And I would have thought, just hand a flag, move on. And he wanted to chat with us. And we probably sat and talked with him for a good hour. So that was kind of neat.
No, I think the way some of those top guys carry themselves in light of what we were just talking about, with all of the cameras and all of the people around you, and you can still move through that crowd and perform at a level. And that's where I think you see some of the younger guys that haven't had those experiences sometimes get swallowed up in that a little bit. So I think that's a part that stands out to me. And I think of it, it's not really a direct connection, but I was thinking of when we were playing in a college golf tournament in Abbotsford, and we took a cab into a Canucks game. We had no money, $100 cab into a Canucks game, and we had arranged with Trevor Linden to get tickets, and he had left some at the door, but there were only 2 of us, and we had 4. It was a little bit of a gong show for us, but we get in there, and then after the game, we're going to go meet him, but he. Buckburger had taken out his teeth. And
no, it was they were playing the Kings, right? They were playing. I don't know who the D man was, but they were playing the Kings because Gordie Howe was in the building.
It was
Gretzky was chasing his record, so Gordie was following around which night would it happen. But he lost some teeth.
So we went down. We talked to him a little bit, and then there are like kids who are just dying to get his autograph, and people just hanging around, right? And I remember one guy asking Trev for a ride home.
That's right, I remember.
And Trev goes, "Oh, gee, I'm so sorry, I'm going the other way."
So Troy never got that.
No, that was actually ended up being Rod Peacock's parents who gave us a ride home.
Yes, they lived in Abbotsford and gave us a ride because we were just poor college kids. Yes. Yeah.
But the way people can carry themselves in front of a group that stands out to me.
Yeah. Okay, what else you got?
Well, I kind of some of the similar thoughts you had, Bart's, about. So I'm going to because I haven't been to a major. And my thoughts on, am I going to go there multi-days? Do I spend time at the range? Do I take in a practice round? Should I be there for Sunday or should I skip that? Like, what's your best advice?
Depends on the event. Like if you're going to the Masters, I think the practice rounds are a bit better because it just gets so many people and so congested on the other days. And when you're at the Masters, when do you get there? You get there when the gates open. When do you leave? Well, when the gates close. Like when you go on, to that major, it is all about the Masters. Like you don't plan anything else. You plan to be there and just hit it all and do it all. But if it's a different, like when I went to Louisville this year for the PGA.
Or Louisville.
We actually didn't decide to go to about a couple months beforehand, bought some tickets on StubHub, found an Airbnb, and we actually went on a Thursday. And I think the Thursday, if I'm going for one day, was the best day because, our generation, I wanted to see Tiger. Tiger wasn't at the Masters. He was sick that time, or he was hurt. He was away. So I wanted to get there Thursday because there's no guarantee Tiger was even going to go Friday. Like he could wake up and say, I'm done, if he's 5 shots back. So I thought Thursday was a great day to go. You get to see everyone. No one's cut. So if there's anyone you want to see, you get to go see them. And same thing, though, is like when you go to a major, I think you need to plan. But then I also think you need to not plan. And what I mean by that is when we were going to the PGA, we wanted to be there really early in the morning because what they did is they grouped a lot of big names going out back to back to back to back. And they're all going off in the 10th hole. And they're all starting the early morning wave. So we thought, okay, I was going with my father, who's a little bit elderly and doesn't get around as well. So we thought, let's get into the grandstands. We're going to grab a seat right behind 10, and we're going to grab a coffee, get something to eat. And then we're going to watch all these marquee groups, hit. And we're going to get to see Phil. We're going to get to see Scottie. We're going to get to see Ricky. We're going to get to see Joaquin and then all these Neiman and all these guys. And then after that, we could figure out the rest of the day. So I think it depends on the major. Like we had a great plan that morning, and Scottie sort of screwed it up a bit because he threw a wrench into everything that tournament. Like we were caught up in that Scottie mess because, like I said, I had a plan. Our plan was to catch the 6:30 shuttle to get onto the property, to get to a good seat in the grandstands to watch all these guys go. But just before we were getting to leave for the shuttle, I got a push notification on my phone from the PGA, and it said, all shuttles have stopped. No access to players or patrons or people getting into the property. The course is closed down. And I'm thinking, like, this is huge. Like
terrorist attack.
That's exactly what I did. The first thing I went to CNN. I'm on CNN looking to see if there's a bomb threat or a terrorist attack, because what else would close this down? And then we got another push notification soon after that said there's been a death on the road. There's been a car accident and someone passed away, and we'll send you a notification on when the shuttles are going to start again and we're going to open the property. So I'm constantly on Twitter, just looking for updates. We decided to stay in our Airbnb and not go to the course because it would have been a mess. And then I'm reading Twitter, and all of a sudden I'm seeing these tweets about Scottie assaulting the cop. And I'm just like, yes. Didn't even tell my brother and my dad who were sitting in the Airbnb would just skip it. Another one, skip it. And then finally I see one from a reporter I recognize, like an ESPN guy, and I'm going to my brother and my dad, I'm going, guys, I think this is real. Like, I think Scottie was arrested. And they're going, no way. I'm going, yeah, like you can't make that up. Like if it was Rory, Rory assaults caddies and all those sort of stuff at the, but like Scottie's the guy that leads the Bible studies on the tours on Tuesday night. Like this can't be Scottie. You can't believe it. And then you start reading more and more, and they could, holy crap, this is real. And then soon after that, we got a notification on the phone that says shuttle started up again. And we're going, holy crap. They said they were going to give us an hour or a half-hour warning. So we all quickly jump in the vehicle, get to the buses, these big Greyhound buses that are going to shuttle us in, and everyone got the same push notification. So it's now a gong show. Like everyone's trying to get on.
And you want to see what's going on.
Yeah, because everyone knows what's happening. And the traffic. So Valhalla is an older golf course. It's an older property. So there was only the one road that goes into the course. It's a residential road. And that's why they had to shut it down because of the accident. And then it also bogged all the traffic because now everyone's trying to. So
you can corroborate his story that he was the only way in was around.
He had to, yeah. Yes. He had to nicely go around, not through. So we got in this huge traffic jam. Like a 15-minute drive took us almost close to an hour sitting on this bus. But it was sort of cool because everyone on the bus knew what was going on. And we're all sharing memes and we're all sharing updates. And they're passing phones around of Scottie in the orange jumpsuit. And we're all like, no, wait, like real? Like I can't believe this. Like what's going on? So it's sort of neat to be part of that moment and to share that moment with everyone on the bus. And when we actually got to the property, we ran as fast as I could to get to 10 because that's where Scottie was teeing off at the beginning. And I got there. I was a little bit late. I couldn't get a seat, but I I got there in a little bit standing room. And then about 5 minutes after I got there, you could hear this roar and you sort of know what's going around. And everyone around in that same moment, okay, Scotty's on the property. Like Scottie just walked in, he's on the practice range. And he maybe hit like 5 balls, and then he was coming in, and we're all just sitting there, and we knew Scottie was the next group. And then the moment he walked through the tunnel and he comes onto the 10th tee, like literally 10 feet in front of us, it just, everyone explodes. It's like going, Scottie, Scottie, Scottie. And then they go, free Scottie. Like the momentum he had behind him, like Tiger had a following, but Scottie just had so much energy and following behind him. Like it was such pro Scottie, like that whole tournament. And we saw him, like it just was weird that we saw him about 4 or 5 times. He came by us and just being in that moment. And even by the end of the day, there are free Scottie t-shirts on the property the same day. And they got his mugshot the same day. Like we're walking around at 2 o'clock and they're already wearing, you know, the coveralls and then the shirts, all the groups that are following along. So they're pretty quick. Like they have their own t-shirt making companies.
Wow.
But yeah, it was, he messed up our plans a little bit, but like we are back to talking about planning, but I think you do need to plan. Like you don't want to miss anything and anything. Like you want to know what's going on. You want to get there early enough so that you can do all the things you want to do. And it may be seeing this player. It may be like when we were at the PGA, Elijah Craig is a bourbon company and they sponsor Max Homa and they sponsor the PGA. So they had a huge tent and they had some events going on there. So I wanted to make sure if we got into there and I wanted to find the Elijah Craig tent and sit down and have a drink. Because I think sometimes some of the most enjoyable moments of being at these events, be majors or lifetime places like Bandon Dunes or anything like that, is I just want to sit on the patio and have a drink and just sit back and go like, yeah, this is pretty cool, you know, and just soak it all in. And I think you got to find time to do a little bit of that too.
Tim, you mentioned something that I think I thought and Dave can speak to it, and Corey, I felt really like it was important and for you this year in particular as well. It's a shared experience with people who aren't even there. So, you know, the British Open that year had free Wi-Fi within the grounds of the course. So if you stepped on the sidewalk, you didn't have it, but in the grandstands you had it. So as I'm watching golf, I'm recording or taping live to my brother back in Medicine Hat and sending him clips. And I think I was sending you, Corey.
Yes, I have one. I was going to bring it up.
Yes. And so when I think about, you know, Tim's during the PGA, you know, Tim and I worked together and I was working hard that day watching the PGA that morning. And I sent Tim a clip of his face right beside Scottie Scheffler as Scheffler walks in on that day, on that moment. Again, I was working hard. It randomly came up. But sharing those experiences with people who aren't there also enhance that, like bringing people into that moment. So yeah, being able to take it all in individually, but also being able to share that with your family or whoever's watching, or, you know, Dave, I'm looking over at a Royal Portrush sign on the wall, right? Like being able to share that experience. So even if you're not there, an event like a major, you know, people always say, I'm never going to play, pro golfers will say, I'm never going to go to Augusta if I get a chance until I make it there myself. Well, there's an element to that that's true, but not everybody can get everywhere, and being able to share that with people who aren't there, I think for me that was a big part of the experience too, being able to, whether people appreciated that, but I appreciated you being at the PGA this year because I got to share in that. And
I think I sent that video to the group chat.
Yeah,
Scottie walking to number 10 tee there.
Yeah,
you know, it's just
cool,
and you want to share with people, and then going with family. You know, like I would go to a major or those events by yourself, but they're so much cooler when you go with a group of friends on a golf trip, or when you go with family or friends to these, because it is sharing it with other people. And
yeah, so thanks for the day off that morning. That was great.
That was fun. You were probably on the number 2 tee by the time you saw that text.
No, right? I actually, our whole office, I was just calling people, get down here, I think I got his face again. No, here's Tim, come on, quick. Yeah. Yes, they were really interested, the rest of the staff.
Big golf fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the planning part, I'm not sure when you went to Scotland, but for us, we could only get the place, you could only a week rental. So of course, then you were knowing that, then you're trying to set up your tickets on how many days did you want to be on the course, but at the same time, traveling with a couple wives who are not golf enthusiasts, what were they going to do when we were going to the course, right? So luckily that way, it worked out really well. We kind of did the course, then we would go sightseeing, and then we kind of just piggybacked back and forth. And then I think it was the Saturday when we went to the course, then the ladies, they got on the train and went to Belfast and went and sightseeing themselves there. So it worked really well that way as couples going away.
Would you plan it yourself? Would you use a company? Have you taken any, not golf, but have you ever taken a company where they planned everything? We just did it.
Yes.
Batted. So once you did, obviously the Masters was, but not PGA. York was not a company.
No, we did it. I did it. Actually, it was predominantly, I looked after getting everything organized. Yeah. And then we just went that way. It was just easier that way. And finding the accommodations. And ironically, it coming back, I called, or I shouldn't say called, I emailed the same company, and they provided me a list of properties that they already have, they know are going to be available next year. And it just started, and there was a ballot system again. Put my name in for it. I have till Tuesday to make a decision, but when I mentioned that, it came across as I think like a lead balloon. It was just like I kind of slipped it in again.
Do you want that edited out of there?
No, that's all good. It's all good. No. But I only got 2 out of I got a practice round and the Thursday. So to go rent a place for a week for only 2 days, it was the Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
So you'd have to be up there for 3. Now at the same time we have family.
So
you could do the back and forth very easily, but I think
but I think that's an important piece though. Like the Masters aside, the Masters is different. You go to Augusta to go to the Masters, there is nothing there to do besides the Masters. Like outside of the property is actually a little bit dingy. Like you don't do anything there except go to the Masters. But I think any other major, I think it's important that you do make it to be something else. Like I didn't go down to Louisville just to see my brother and spend time with my dad. Like we thought that's okay. Yeah, this is just a piece of the trip, and we got the bourbon trail there. I like bourbon. So we planned to hit, 2 or 3 different distilleries, down, around Louisville area, and spent a couple of days doing that sort of stuff. Planned a nice meal down on Whiskey Row in downtown Louisville and walking around there at night, and then playing a couple golf rounds, my brother's course back in Southern Kentucky after we left. So I think it needs to be a little bit more in golf for some of these, because that's sort of part of the experience is just go out and don't worry about the costs. Like do the good things, drink the good wine. Yep. Drink that beer.
We were there 3 weeks, and my sister-in-law and the other couple that traveled with us, they were there like 12 days and 14 days. So then we had family, we did Dublin as a group. Then we went to family. All of us went up to the Open, came back to family, then everyone left, and then we had a few more days with family, and then we took off down to the south, to the bottom of the coast of Ireland to see that, and there were some family friends down there we knew, and went down there for just about another week down there, so kind of just spread it out.
Would that be the same for other people, that the Masters is in a different category, maybe because of the venue that it is, in that now when I watch the Open and I see that, I think, I'd really like to go watch that. But I'd really also like to go play there. And maybe it's also that I know I could never get on to Augusta. That's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Would you guys who've been to some of these venues that you can actually get on, if you had to pick whether to attend an Open or play 7 or 10 days there, what would you do?
I think I might go back and just play. This time, because I've already been there, but then that's one of the courses I haven't played is Portrush. But Royal County Down I've played, and that's one of the nice ones. And then a few other places in Ireland. So that would be, and then of course Port Stewart that I mentioned, being right there. I think right now
You'd lean towards the play.
I lean to the play side right now.
Yeah, bad time to ask about playing golf.
As bad as it is, I'd still go play.
Yeah,
memories.
I don't know that when you go to a place like that hosts a golf tournament, that you can't do both. I think there is something about doing both. We've experienced that on our Palm Springs trip, playing PGA West and then seeing it on TV. And having an opportunity to do both changes the dynamic of the golf and the golf course and the tournament. You know, one of the things I was going to ask all of us is thinking about some of those golf courses that you've seen, whether it's a major or not, like what would you shoot on those golf courses now that you've been there? When you think about Augusta, when you think about Portrush, when you think about PGA West, what are the scores from the tees that they're hitting off of and the conditions that they're playing in? Like, what would you shoot there?
Way more. I think the thing that stands when the one that's really in my head is PGA West, because those guys eat that course up, right? Like at first they all hated it, and now they destroy it. And we played whatever third set from the back. I don't remember what it was, but there's a couple of holes like
at par 3. What is it? 5?
Par 3. It's a driver, like over water, right? It has
there's no escape.
And the green is giant, but it has a sprinkler right in the middle of the green. That's how big the green is. They have a sprinkler in the middle of it. But then is it 16, the par 5 with the giant sand down the side? Like we hit off those tees that are across the road, but there's another set of tees 100 yards back, and that's where they're hitting from, and hitting the green into. It's remarkable how far they can hit the golf ball and how well they control it. So yeah, for sure, I don't. I would love to have that challenge one day of playing the PGA Championship the day after, the guys there with the same tees and the same conditions, and have a good chuckle.
I think maybe some holes, some shots, but I think after a while it might wear on you a little bit when you're hitting your fifth, you're still not at the green, things like that. But there'd be some places where I'd want to walk.
Like you told it, like you're talking, that's not a regular round, Tim.
That's just day to day. That's always. But you'd also want to enjoy it. Like you would like to be on some of those iconic courses and actually have like an 8-iron or a 9-iron into a green, instead of trying to hit 3-wood into the green every time or laying up. Like you sort of want to play it maybe like it's meant to be played, but then every now and then step back to the tips just to see like, this is the tee shot on 10 or this is the tee shot on 18 at the Masters. It's just like standing there like I just couldn't believe, like I don't know how I would hit that shot on 18. Like,
I wondered that. How do they put it through that window? That is just remarkable.
It's worse than it looks on TV. Like, and on the 18th hole, like how they can actually.
It widens out after.
It does, but it's just such a narrow shoot when they go all the way back there. Like it's just.
I just think of a previous guest on the show, Tim Hall, and some golf trips. Like where is it? The Buffalo Hill. Buffalo Hills. He had some trees that weren't there. They weren't in line, so I don't know what 18 would have done to him.
Yeah. Rich, how about you?
I think like the one thing, and I don't know if we pre-decided that before the trip we were not bringing clubs, even though there was days it just with family and couples, it just wasn't a golf trip, and so that was
probably smart.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and even just trying to travel,
relationship wise.
That too. Try to sneak in and sneak in 18 and this and that there. Yeah, no, that wasn't, and because there was so many other things to do, and so that was, I guess, ultimately the big thing was just knowing what the trip was.
Could you? Is it possible to do the Costanza? Like what the Costanza.
Turner's already building a meme here for Instagram.
Well, Costanza, when he's the trifecta of like the Reuben sandwich, he's in bed with his girlfriend, he's got a Reuben sandwich, and he's listening to the baseball game. Like all of those, like that is everything all fits at the exact same time. It's perfect. So could you build a golf trip, a going to a major, sightseeing? Could you do all of that? Is it possible to do all of that?
I think if you're going to something like the Masters or the Players, and there's a lot of, you could probably slip in, maybe you're only getting one round, but when you're with couples, I think there has to be other venues available for non-golfers.
Because you want everyone to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You want everyone to have a memorable time. You don't want to feel bad that, you know, like I'm sitting at the golf course for 3 days straight and my wife is just sitting at home waiting for the tournament to end.
Done a few fishing trips, Tim, I recall.
Yeah. So I've learned. Yeah. Speaking from experience. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know about the trifecta because in my head I've pictured.
You're not a corned beef guy.
I've pictured, you know, making my way to Ireland or Scotland, playing some golf, and then connecting with family. Now that I'm in Europe, somewhere like the south of France or something, and spending some time there. So, and maybe they're there earlier too, and we'll make it. I'm stating publicly that we will make it as fair as possible, and everybody can have the same opportunities. I actually jokingly shared this story, this idea, this concept with Kenna a couple of weeks ago, but there weren't children involved in the story, and Kenna's like, "No, I'll sue you." So maybe there are ways of making it so that everybody gets out of it what they want, but that idea doesn't include necessarily going to a golf tournament.
And I think you could maybe do it as a group of guys if there is an event and a course you wanted to play in a particular place, you could.
Yeah, I think it totally depends on who you're with. Like if it's the four of us going over to watch it, we bring our clubs and we hit a couple different courses, you know, while we're there. I sort of look at these majors as somewhat of a bucket list item, but I want to go to them when they're in places I want to go to. Like I want to go to the Open when it's at St. Andrews. You know, I want to go to the U.S. Open when it's in a place like New York or Boston because I want to go back to New York. I want to go to Boston. You know, if it was in Wisconsin, I might not lean to go, you know, because what else am I going to do there? So it depends on the place, you know, and depends on the people you're going with. Like when I went to the PGA, my dad and my brother, like Bourbon Trail was a great fit. And we also brought our clubs and we got about 2 or 3 rounds in also at the same time. So that was the fit for that trip. But
yeah, I looked this past year at Augusta, a tour company that, you know, you can stay as long as you want. You just tell them what you want, whether that's the number of days, where locations, and spring. It's right around the start of baseball season. Is start of April, and you know, flying into Atlanta, catching a baseball game, and being able to play a couple of rounds. Like again, the Costanza, being able to pull that off. And doing that with the whole family, like what would that entail? And I think you might want to go 2 or 3 days to Masters. Like one might be that's as much as you can fit in, and you might not be, as you said. I don't know what Augusta looks like at that time of year outside of the grounds, but if there's not a lot to do, you might just be getting there for a day.
John Daly's going to be at the Hooters across the street signing stuff.
That's where it's going to be. Yeah,
that's really the only other site in Augusta.
John Daly.
You've been there. So when I went to a conference in Florida this year and meet a gentleman, he's a teacher, and he lives in Augusta. So I'm like, oh, there's a lot of that, but he's a non-golfer, and he just said, no, that's just chaos. Like that just brings so much just chaos to that little town. Wow. And he goes, then literally I was asking him, like, is it as hard to find rentals? Because predominantly everyone goes over to the Carolinas and just commutes in and places. And yeah, that's what he's like, yep, there is just nothing there.
Well, when we stayed at those houses, and I don't know who I was talking to, but they said when Mercedes-Benz took over these properties around this lake community and the people who owned the houses left for the whole week, they said that Mercedes was paying them enough money for the week to cover like 4 or 5 mortgage payments. So they were making enough money off this to, you know, sustain these type of properties, and they were taking advantage of all these people coming into Augusta. So they were definitely feeding off the Masters also. You know, they may hate all the people, but they were making some money off of it. That's for sure.
100%.
I just have one more for you now. I just have food and beverage as one of my lines. Was that something that stood out for you? Knowing more, I wouldn't have thought about that. You know, Old Milwaukee at 20 years old seemed like a quality drink. But now when you think about food and beverage, and you've shown up here tonight, Tim, with a delightful beverage for us, what do you recall about food and beverage from your experience?
Well, for me, it'd be the same thing you guys did. Like, what are you going to eat at Masters?
Well, you're going to have the pimento sandwich.
Pimento cheese sandwich, the egg sandwich, the peach ice cream sandwich.
But the prices
Barbecue
are
sandwich.
ridiculous. Yeah, like
$1.50 for pimento cheese still. Like, they haven't changed. Beer's $4 or $5. You know, I guess the cool thing about the Masters, because they're the only brand there also. Like, if you go to buy any swag and shirts, like at the PGA, I could get a Nike shirt with the PGA logo on it, or an Under Armour shirt. At the Masters, you can't. It's Masters brand. Like, they have a small booth of Peter Millar, but it's a Masters beer. Like, you're not buying.
well, even Coca-Cola, although I think is a big sponsor because that's a Georgia company, right?
Company.
You're gonna get a Coke in a Masters glass.
Yeah, like they just control everything. So yeah, the food is cool. The food is good. They have those iconic items there that you're going to try. Like, all you guys, no matter if you hate it or even if you're allergic to it, you're going to take a bite. Like, you're going to have a bite of the pimento cheese sandwich.
Was it any good?
It's not that great. I had one, you know. But yeah, like when I went to the PGA, I was actually really disappointed. My ticket included food. So I think all the tickets did, because all the food venues they had there, you just walk in and you can either grab a burger or a sandwich and then pop in a bag of chips. And they just herded you in like cattle. And then you grabbed your food and then they herded you back out again. And there's no place for you to sit. So
This is like an HPEC conference back in the day, yeah.
You know, and it's raining for most of the day. And you have all these people on the property, and you're on the property for 8 hours at least. And you can't find a place to sit down and enjoy a nice bite to eat. So I was really disappointed in that. Like, the highlight was going to Elijah Craig, because they did have seats in there, and we did find a seat, and we got to sit down and we had bourbon and just relax for a little bit. Like, that was probably the most enjoyable part of the non-golf. But yeah, the food, I didn't like how they planned it. Like, they should have at least given us some sort of seats, because we couldn't sit on the grass. It was all muddy. Like, it was like the waste management. People were sliding down the hills and there were mud all over their backs. So yeah, that was a disappointment.
Yeah, the Open, I don't know if it's similar. They had a big collection area, and so there was some tents that you could go in and be indoors to get some food. But there was this big common area where, you know, there's a number of, I guess, vendors of, you know, whatever type of food you wanted to get, predominantly fish and chips and some other, and then obviously beverages, but then they had the big giant jumbotrons. And that was, I just pulled up a quick...
With the beanbag chairs?
Yeah, there's beanbag chairs, but you can kind of see the masses of people.
That doesn't look relaxing. And I'm remembering that. Yeah.
And then they did have like tables, like bar type. So you're just standing, and that was just a neat vibe there. And then out on the course, there was only a few different places that they had places you could go and get. But then part of it is once you're out, and if you go up and you're sitting in the stands, then the bathroom situation.
Oh boy, that was yeah.
So that's a strategical thing you have to, like, you're kind of thinking about that, like,
the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, I remember watching on the TV. I could see Troy. They had on these blue wind jackets, and they were at the top of the grandstand, like right under the names that were up there. And that's all I'm going is, how do you go to the bathroom?
And those seats, you can't leave. So there's a lineup to get into those seats on the last day, even with our special badges or whatever. There's lineups all the way in the back of the grandstand, but there's no bathrooms. And so Krista and Emily got 2 seats right near the bottom, right near the green. We got our seats, we're up by the scoreboard. But once you're there, you can't leave, because the moment you leave, there's no one to save your seats. They put 2 more. You only can walk in and out one way. As you're leaving, they're bringing their walkie-talking from a different angle so you can't leave. So it's cold. I have determined that I'm going to have several Stellas, which was part of the plan, but it was a terrible day for that, and a weak bladder. That is just a bad recipe. So there it was, Truman holding me, trying to talk to the attendant at the bottom, saying, no, my son's up there, I can't leave him, and then there's no bathrooms around. You have to walk sprint over to the Hall of Fame or whatever it was. Yeah, I would say that is a problem, would be bathrooms. And I would say the food, you both said it, I think, maybe not at the Masters, but the PGA, I thought the food was a bit underwhelming for what was there. And what were the costs for beer for you?
I didn't feel that was ridiculous.
I think it was $18 Canadian a beer.
You know what? To be honest, you said it earlier. I don't keep track of that because I just when I go, and it just
because it was coming in and going out at the same time. I was me as well.
Yeah. It probably was because of the exchange. Right?
Yeah.
That is always, especially Europe. And
probably no price was going to stop you from buying a Guinness.
No,
No.
not at all. No. And then similar, like you were saying, with the bourbon and that kind of thing. There,
I just ordered it. I didn't even know how much it was.
Yeah, my brother-in-law, there was a Scotch that was one of the sponsors for the Open. So of course we had to go to that tent and have a sample, and then he's ordering a bottle, and so who knows what that is.
The tricky part about some of these venues, right? Particularly for majors, right? So they're not arenas, right? So I've just said the word right a lot. We're editing that out. You've got all these food courts that are pre-established for every hockey game. They're ready. There's a system in place. You can go and do all your things. Even a tournament that is an annual one, they have every year. They've got a plan. They can build on it year over year. But St. Andrews is every 5 years, and Portrush is like 68 years, right? Now they're back in the rotation, right? So these
The
PGA Valhalla.
Yeah, that was its second or third time.
Right. None of that infrastructure is there, and now suddenly you have 40,000 people on your property. And you can't bring your own food, right? Like that's.
Well, you can't bring anything, and that was the annoying thing.
Yeah.
So you couldn't take a backpack in, thinking like I want to put a rain jacket in there, or I want to maybe take some other stuff just in case, because you're there for the day, and it's no bags. Like there was no drawstring bags, no backpacks, no clear shopping bags. Like it was sort of a little bit annoying.
Well, we were allowed bags, and then of course umbrellas.
Yeah, we had the umbrellas. But
So if you could choose, like, think about your favorite concert you've ever been, music concert, your favorite sporting event outside of golf, a major, or maybe even if you've been to a TED conference somewhere, but like if you could choose one of those, having been at all of those kind of, what would it be? A major, rock concert, NHL playoff game, NBA playoff game, NFL game, Bruce Springsteen concert.
I think it's more than that. I think it's like you said with the trifecta. Like it's not just the event, it's where the event's at and who you're with. If you can get all of that together, and like if you can pick the perfect scenario, like iconic place, iconic course, or iconic venue, and good people around you, you can share that experience with, and then that's.
But at the Masters, you said you were on the bus every morning with a stranger.
I was, but it was a trip with family. It was with my brother.
Right.
So that, but you just can't beat the Masters.
Yeah.
But on doing the PGA, and I think you need the trifecta though.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you need all those pieces for me just to make it, what you want it to be.
I think similar, right? I don't know if the event is what the event is, but if it is the trifecta and you have all the other events, people with you, there's an energy that comes from that. And then, as Mo would say, making those memories, those moments.
And the cherry on top would be, like if you could get to a Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final or of an NBA championship, or somebody doing something silly down the stretch in a golf tournament where the whole place comes alive, and you're never going to get that. You can get 8-1 games in Game 7 of a hockey game. You don't know how it's going to go, but any chance you get to be in that place where there's just not the normal amount of energy, that would be cool to be part of that. So I would pick that if I could just
in any one of those. Yeah.
If I could make it happen.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. My guess is that all of you will go look up that clip from Seinfeld for the trifecta.
I remember it now that you mention it. Then I'm like, okay, yes, I do remember that.
Tim, you remember it?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I have that other picture. This was the deciding. Yeah, this was the radar, the deciding factor why we did not go.
It was just all just stormy.
that was Sunday.
Well, if the wind comes from,
Yeah, it was just bad.
Yeah.
So
I'll have to get you to share those pictures with Turner.
okay, I will.
Yeah. Any last thoughts from anybody?
I think the earlier part when you talk the planning, get ahead of it, because it is getting harder now that so many venues in golf are ballot systems now, that kind of thing. And then,
Do you think that's because people have that whole secondary market has figured that out? Yeah.
because I was on today looking, like, 'cause I have my the potential for this, but I was just curious, and then sure enough, there's the whole package, like a number of websites there for accommodation packages. Even I don't know, did they have the glamping when you?
No.
So if you go on now, they have
Glamping is part of it.
and they had it when we were there as well. Just you could stay in the campground right next to and just live in these little tents.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you go to the open, just have a peek at that. It's quite comical.
Yeah, and just go. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to enjoy yourself. Like, we're sort of getting at the age in our lives right now that I'd rather regret the things that I did do instead of regret the things that I didn't do.
Agreed.
Yeah, or even if you, if you just went with your dad, right, and the strategies that you have to watch a golf tournament when you're in your 70s or with somebody that's in your 70s is different than what you can do now, right? Like you can choose to follow some groups. You could choose to park on a hole for a while and move around, but down the road you might just be sitting in your chair because that's the easiest to do, and you still get to take it in, but maybe not in the way that you can now. That feels like ending too much on a downer.
Well, the AI has changed the way and how efficient we can be at things, and I think companies can think way faster and better, and there's a cost to that. And real estate agents make money because they figured that out, maybe, but those companies. I'm maybe more of a proponent now. I think Bandon was a perfect example of how good it can be. The British Open, we did it all through a company. Did our first part of Europe without, just on our own, which was fine because there was no time. But I didn't regret, and I did not look at what the cost of the company. I didn't try to check out how much they were making on it, but it was worth it.
Yeah, the peace of mind that happens once you're there and it's real, because that was always the part I'm nervous about.
Reputable company.
All right. Well, thanks guys for joining us for this episode.